From Godfather 2 to Garfield 2. Let's talk us some cinema, because I've got to use this film degree somehow. Happy Halloween. My costume this year, I've come as Norman Bates. Because, you know, Psycho, it's a horror classic, it's a staple. Personally, I think my costume's looking pretty dope. I haven't got a wig, and I'm down a dress. But other than that, shit, I'm just a guy holding a knife. Psycho, for the record, is not what we're talking about today, but it is my favourite horror movie. It's my favourite Hitchcock movie, one of the best movies ever made, period. Because it's one of the masters. The master of suspense, doing a fun, schlocky carnival ride. All the film studies aside, Hitchcock wanted to make it supremely clear this would be a fun picture. And it's no stretch to say this is a very interactive movie. In this trailer, Hitchcock actually walks through the film, like a demented tour guide of the haunted house.
Now, it was at the top of these stairs that the second murder took place.
Yeah, thanks for that spoiler, Alfie. No, my real topic today is interactive film. And today that means we're talking about Final Destination 3. I'm surprised as you are. Now, if you're expecting a masterclass dissection of Final Destination 3, then I'm sorry to disappoint, because the contents simply are not there for that. This is a pretty surface level entry into an already schlocky, cheap horror franchise. I hear we don't use the term torture porn anymore, but we should. If you love seeing innocent teens getting dismembered, boom, this is your film. But I'm here to talk about something much more terrifying on the second disc. Remember DVDs? The physical medium is dying, and this collection is now landfill. You want my advice? Buy every DVD you can. Check out some of the crazy second discs and the bonus content and the interactive media that you could access through them, because the early digital era, the early years of DVDs, paved the way for some of the cutest and most experimental stuff you've ever seen. I have more childhood memories of Disney bonus feature games than the actual movies themselves. Also, Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed, masterpiece, had an interactive game that captivated me as a young boy. Directly pulled me in more than most video games. And if anybody remembers the Harry Potter second discs, oh my god, these things were extensive. Why watch the movie when you could actually play it? As physical media disappears, so do these special features. The documentaries, the commentaries, that crucial look into the reality of the production that I feel like modern Star Wars fans could definitely do with. But Final Destination 3 went one step beyond. Now, I think it's fair to say, not my kind of movie. But then, pop in the second disc. On here lies the Choose Their Fate viewing mode. A feature so different and experimental that it should be the only way of watching this film. With this mode engaged, the movie will actually stop at certain intervals and present the viewer with a seemingly insignificant choice. Dependent on the viewer's answer, you can actually change core events in the film. You can let other characters survive, who didn't usually survive in the theatrical cut. With one thermostat change or a coin toss, you can change the entire outcomes and get an alternative version of the exact same scene. You can end the movie in the first 10 minutes, with everybody saved. The movie stopping in your own home feels so incredibly wrong. Films don't work like this, and there's very good reason for that. It's a carnival-style game of fates. Stumbling across something like this all by yourself is involving. To have that in the room with you is scary because it's so invasive. Suddenly, something fun and schlocky is testing the boundaries of how we perceive media. This gimmick is perfectly suited to a movie franchise that thoughtlessly and ambivalently plays with the human life. When I played this mode with friends, very quickly there was a feeling of guilt. We are now culpable for the events happening on screen. Whoever holds the TV remote now is positioned as the Grim Reaper themselves. It's impossible to not feel like you're part of events, immediately drawn in. These are bad films that accidentally reconnect us to the very real, very uncomfortable truth of death statistics. Did you know 1 in 5 Americans die from cinema explosion every year? Yeah, makes you think. The sweet release of death lies around every mundane corner. Yay. Once I found this, I went on the hunt. I went looking for anything remotely similar. Horror films on digital versatile disc with hidden depth. And lo and behold, The Ring. Press a certain feature and you get the unedited full video of the cursed footage. The VHS tape. And you can't turn it off until it's finished. No, seriously, press the off switch. It will not work. The only way to separate and end this horrible fucking video is to take out it from the mains. When you return to the DVD menu, wait 1 minute. That's so fucked up. Then there's the found footage film, The Last Horror Movie. This whole film is a demented Easter egg. This film is actually a product of the VHS generation, with a genius premise. And 5 minutes in, this happens.
Hello. I realise this isn't what you're expecting. Let me explain. The film you hired from the video store, I recorded over it. But don't go switching off. You're interested now, aren't you? Go on, admit it. Well, you hired a horror movie, didn't you? So you wanted to see something scary, right? Don't worry, I'll explain.
This is Max, the local serial killer, who has taped over your horror movie and is now hunting you. This is my nightmare. The fourth wall will not protect you. And the film itself, it's kind of pretentious and outdated, but that premise is golden.
I'll be seeing you.
And lastly, My Little Eye. Oh my god, My Little Eye. Now you are forgiven if you haven't heard of the 2002 British horror My Little Eye. Starring Bradley Cooper, it follows 5 strangers who agree to live in an abandoned mansion for 6 months. Their actions are being broadcast to a darknet internet reality show. Slowly but surely, the 5 strangers are fucked with. Imagine Big Brother, but a snuff film. Now, you can watch this movie the boring theatrical way, or interactive mode. A password unlocked feature that changes the film. So once you've done some digging and accessed your way into this mode, you realise the theatrical cut is just one tiny piece of the film's puzzle. No longer is it entertainment for entertainment's sake. No, now you're actively going out of your way to spy. What is film if nothing but voyeurism? And this is the purest, most evil form of it. Now you get to watch the movie again, but with all these details, the stats and statistics of who everybody's voting to survive. Now you watch the film in its complete form. You see where all the villains are in the house. We found a hidden commentary track by accident of Bradley Cooper and the other villains operating the house. Where there are mysterious noises or unexplained mysteries in the original film, now we know exactly what they are as Bradley Cooper interacts with the movie. Now you aren't being shown just one part. Now you're seeing more than just a film. And this experience with friends, discovering this all by ourselves, we almost didn't put in the second disc, left me feeling dirty, guilty, and paranoid. It's a very real, personal kind of fear. And that kind of creeping dread, that level of guilt, stays with you for months. Sorry, the nun. You're no longer an innocent spectator, but actively responsible for the events happening on screen. It's a dark, evil privilege delivered to us through a DVD menu. That's insane, and nothing like that has really been done before, and not a lot has been done like that since. Ever since I was young, I've had a very, very specific fear. When characters break the fourth wall and directly address the audience, I sink into my seat. Yeah, sure, Deadpool and Ferris Bueller and Teen Titans, they can get away with that, no problem. But when I'm not expecting it, when I'm at the end of a long day, drifting off to sleep, and suddenly Get that shit out of my face. It's a fear I've looked into a lot, but it's something that film can only approach in a very superficial way, usually reserved for meta-comedies. I tell you now, there is no quicker way to strike fear into my soul than have a horror film know I'm there and know that I am watching. Let's talk about voyeurism. Uh-oh, suddenly that Hitchcock reference at the start wasn't a throwaway gag. Hitchcock loved voyeurism. To him, all film was a spectator sport. He's made countless films about it. Characters spy on other characters. The camera itself acts as a looking glass for the voyeur. At the end of the day, I think he understood that we're all just a bunch of strangers sitting in a dark room looking into the lives of others. When Norman Bates spies on Marion Crane, unless the audience covers their eyes or walks out the cinema, you are doing the exact same thing. You are complicit in the voyeurism. Films are mostly about immersion, so they never acknowledge the spectator-to-screen relationship. When a horror film calls that suddenly into question, it is a breach of the most intimate, personal contract. It is sick, it is twisted, and I love it. But both of these examples could not be achieved in cinema. Try and imagine what an interactive film would look like in a theatre.
I have no choice but to... If you want Calculon to race to the laser gun battle in his hover Ferrari, press 1. If you want Calculon to double-check his paperwork, press 2. Enter now. You have pressed 2.
No, I didn't.
I'm almost positive you did.
Such a thing could only be possible via gaming. The staple of the late Telltale games was a narrative-based choose-your-own-adventure story. Make decisions from the options provided, and it is ultimately, as many people grew to realize throughout their history, an illusion of freedom. There is no freedom involved in these games. You're on a set course, meaning the story can only branch out into limited eventualities. The Telltale games met success because they presented what seemed like a personalized adventure. You and you alone decided your options. So what happens when we give those same options to a crowd of 100 strangers in the dark? You think they'll be diplomatic? I don't know about you, but the first thing I do in a game that presents me a choice is test my own boundaries. There are entire channels, communities based off of breaking games, pushing them to their exact limits, and generally seeing what you can get away with. If I'm presented with a good or an evil option, I'm going to go the evil route. I think it's safe to assume most people will. There's an inherent desire to want to break the game, to test your own limits. How far does this game go? What will they really let me get away with? To do a moderate, neutral playthrough is considered a failure for the gamer. So interactive stories will always find themselves pivoting between two extremes. The cinema, on the other hand, is a communal experience. If we put those same decisions to a crowd of 100 strangers to diplomatic vote, things aren't going to go well. Luckily, we don't have to hypothesize. In 1961, William Castle, sort of like the B-movie version of Hitchcock, released Mr. Sardonicus, a film advertised to have two different endings. You decide the fate of Mr. Sardonicus with your punishment pole.
And that's how the story ends, with the lovers living happily ever after. But has Mr. Sardonicus been punished enough?
So what did this punishment pole entail? At the climax of the film, where the villain, Mr. Sardonicus, is caught, the audience are given small, luminous white cards with thumbs up or thumbs down. They would supposedly hold them up to the projectionist, and the winning vote would then decide which ending they received. They passed judgment on a fictional character. Yeah, they had those film gimmicks hard back in the 1960s. It was a daring, experimental gimmick that had never been done before. And the most interesting thing about this gimmick is that it was probably a complete hoax. There are many reports that a good ending where they spare Mr. Sardonicus has never actually been seen. There are different reports, but it's very likely thought that it would be cheaper and easier for the film to only have the dark ending.
So be it. You have given the verdict. You have made the decision, and the majority of you have sentenced Mr. Sardonicus to further punishment.
Many claim a good ending was never even filmed. Because really, when you put a choice like that, when you put a man's fate in the hands of an invisible, anonymous crowd, William Castle knew they will always demand blood. Compare it to a courtroom, to the witch trials, to the gladiator arenas. Never underestimate the power of a mob. But this turn of the macabre, this look into human nature, and that is the core reason why interactive cinema can never exist. The fact that a crowd will always oscillate to the most extreme, depraved option given to them is macabre as hell. And it is a concept that could only work with horror films. Whether it was a hoax or not does not matter. This is one of my favourite events in all of film. Most gimmick cinema is done for the sheer sake of immersion, with just one choice presented to them. The punishment pole transformed an audience of silent voyeurs into a fucking lynch mob. Films are unnatural, and we don't like to be reminded of this. Interactive media can never truly exist, because both gaming and cinema both just present the illusion of that choice. Which is why I liked DVDs, because they were both. They were neither. At the very basis of film, you're allowing a camera to guide you. You accept somebody else's perspective. You are being literally directed, whilst a game can only hope to babysit the player, to guide them in the right direction. So in truth, it's really no surprise as to why these didn't catch on. But we are definitely losing something as we come away from physical media. There was a brief wave of cheap, schlocky, avant-garde experimentalism. A specific brand of horror that could only be brought to us by one specific genre. Present a choice and see the true nature of humanity reveal itself. Happy Halloween.